whenever and wherever you want to talk sports.
Now it's time for Monty in the Morning.
Well, hello there, friends. Good to see you. It is Thursday, June 24th, 2021. We're a week away from the 4th of July.
It's insane.
How is that possible that it is almost the 4th of July? By the way, no fireworks in Utah this year. Please do not burn the state down. My dogs thank you in advance. We have got a lot to talk about. Jake is absolutely unable to sleep the last few days with the news that software pioneer John McAfee committed suicide and was not murdered. Jake has been up for days investigating.
Yeah.
He even called Jeffrey Epstein on his secret island to get advice.
Yep. And I called my sources in the feds, so, yeah.
He has no sources. He's lying. Let's go ahead and get into the National Basketball Association. And, Jake, I guess here's my biggest question.
Yeah.
Speaking of conspiracy theories,
is
Danny Ainge going to be the next general manager of the Utah Jazz? This has been a hotly contested piece of conversational material across dinner tables throughout the great state of Utah on the Wasatch Front. I don't know. It's very early. My point is, Utah Jazz fans are talking a lot about this, and now these stories about whether or not Dwayne Wade is lobbying Ryan Smith, the owner of the Utah Jazz, Dwayne Wade's close friend, Danny Ainge's close friend and college mate. Remember, Danny Ainge is a BYU alum. Is Dwayne Wade lobbying Ryan Smith to make significant changes in the front office? Well, if you believe the sources, Dwayne Wade is absolutely asking for change in the front office, and Ryan Smith is supposedly going to make those changes and supposedly going to hire Danny Ainge at any moment to be the next general manager of the Utah Jazz. Jake, is it a good move or a bad move?
I think it's a great move. I think, if you're going to make a major change in your front office, generally speaking, you want to do it for somebody who's proven and has shown that they can build contending teams. Now, the first reaction that I'm sure people are going to have is, well, the Boston Celtics lately have been a team that have underachieved. They've got Tatum and Brown, and they went through the Kyrie thing, and so they've just been this team that hasn't been able to get the job done. But when you look at the total package with Danny Ainge and what he's been able to do, he's won. He typically is in the playoffs, and I think, not only is he in the playoffs, he's usually got a team that's going to contend to make deep playoff runs. And I think that experience is really what you're looking for in your next person. You need somebody to be able to come in here and identify the shortcomings of the roster, identify the opportunities in the roster, and figure out what exactly the direction is to get this Jazz team with Don and Rudy to the NBA Finals. Because I truly believe that is the sole focus right now. This past season, the expectation I feel like was to make an NBA Finals run. I don't know about winning it, but at least getting there I feel like was the expectation, and they just fell short.
I think there's no doubt that most Jazz fans felt like the Utah Jazz were the best team in the NBA. And hey, they had the best record, but I think the one thing that Jazz fans are is very emotional. And I think once you get away from this for a minute, which is what I think Ryan Smith is doing. Brylark, good morning to you. First in, says, I'm surprised they haven't announced firings yet. Usually it's less than a week before you hear about changes. Well, that's when you are a bad basketball team that ended the season at the bottom of the table, and you're going to make changes no matter what. And you made that decision probably 6 weeks ago. This is a team that people had expectations were going to beat the LA Clippers. This is a team that people had expectations would be playing the Phoenix Suns right now instead of playing golf. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who are expecting changes. I think Ryan Smith is doing the right thing. I would guess that Ryan Smith, the owner of the Utah Jazz right now, is doing some homework. I would guess that he is meeting with his front office. And if he's going to make a change, I would guess he's having those conversations now, Danny Ainge or otherwise. You don't do that the next day. I think you have to take time. It has been a very difficult week since the season ended. And I think the right thing to do is not act in haste or emotion. Take your emotions out of it and make good basketball decisions. And I'm thinking that's what Ryan Smith is going to do. I've heard for several days that Dwayne Wade is lobbying Ryan Smith to make changes in the front office. And I'm telling you, and obviously if you listen to this show, you know we've been lobbying for the exact same thing. I think you got to make a clean sweep. I think you got to move Dennis Lindsey on. And I think you got to do the same thing with your general manager and your scouting and player development and all of that. And you've got to hire somebody, and I advocate for Danny Ainge. I think you got to hire somebody that can build a championship team like he did in Boston. And to me, Jake, it makes perfect sense that you would make that change.
Yeah, and I also think it's a low risk change as well. I think it's it's one of those moves where nobody's going to criticize Ryan Smith for going out and getting a guy like Danny Ainge. We're not going to be able to sit here and say, hey, you got some college guy who was a huge risk and has no experience. I mean, Danny Ainge has won a championship as a player. He's won a championship as an executive, and he put together one of the best Boston teams that franchise has ever seen. So I just think it's a great move. I think if you're a Jazz fan, you're waiting to see. What is that first domino to fall this offseason? Is it, in fact, the front office? Or is it, we don't really hear anything for a while, and then all of a sudden a trade pops up? Or, I think, if you're a Jazz fan, you're looking and waiting for that, because that's going to tell you the mentality of this offseason. Is the mentality from Ryan Smith, hey, we had a good team, and we just fell a little short because of the injuries, and we're just going to try and do a little bit with this roster? Or is he like us and like a lot of people saying, hey, we need an overhaul in the front office. We got to make some major changes, and we need to get aggressive with that. That's, I feel like, what we're really waiting for.
Well, and I think you have to ask yourself, what does a championship caliber organization look like? And I think what that looks like is the LA Lakers. Right now, I think if you're looking at the Phoenix Suns, I think you're looking at the teams that you have to compete with on a regular basis, and you're seeing teams that are aggressive to change. I mean, the Lakers fired Magic Johnson. I mean, you have to do things that hurt. You have to do things that are hard. If you want to win, you have to go and do things that you haven't always done as an organization. And I think if you look back through time, the teams that were terrible, the Golden State Warriors, they only were able to change that because they made radical differences. The day that the Golden State Warriors hired Jerry West to be an advisor in 2011, I'll never forget that press conference. I'll never forget talking to Jerry West after that press conference happened in San Francisco. And you just quickly realized that the status quo was not good enough. And all of a sudden, the Golden State Warriors started drafting better and winning championships and doing all the things that you need to do to perform on that level. And I think that's the hardest part for teams like the Utah Jazz, because you feel like you were close when in all reality, you weren't very close at all. And so if you want to win a championship, you have to make a significant change. And that change is going to start in the front office, because you're not going to fire a coach. You're not going to make trades. You're not going to draft guys if you're going to change the front office. So it's been quiet and it's been silent for a very good reason. You don't have a whole lot of free agency to talk about. Mike Conley really is your only truly free agent decision you have to make. But you're going to change this roster. The only question in my mind is it Danny Ainge or is it Dennis Lindsey that's going to spearhead the change in this organization? And my guess is that Dwayne Wade has significant voice in this and impact in this. That's why you brought him here. Would you bring in Dwayne Wade if he wasn't going to have any influence or impact? I kind of think you would not do that. So I feel like all of the arrows are pointing in the direction of major change in the front office for the Jazz, because I don't think you're bringing Danny Ainge in as an advisor or somebody that you can call to ask advice. If you're bringing Danny Ainge in, it's to run the whole damn thing.
Yeah, it's his ship at that point. I mean, it has to be. I think the only way that Danny Ainge would be in an advisory role is if he were to stay with the Celtics. But I just don't see that.
That's over with.
Yeah, that's done. And so it just is. I think I don't know. I think overall, like, the great thing about bringing Dwayne Wade in is that, he's got the on-court perspective, the player perspective. He understands the X's and O's and the tactical stuff that is required to win a championship. And somebody like Danny Ainge, or, if it's not Danny Ainge, who hopefully whoever they decide they'd like to bring in, assuming they make a move, is experienced and is, like, ready to go and has done this before. And I just don't feel like the Jazz are in a position with where the cap is at and where this roster's at and how all this went down this season to take any kind of risk. And that's why Danny Ainge is, like, again, the perfect fit. He's done this before.
But I think, and with all due respect, I just don't think there's anybody who thinks they're going to take a risk. I don't think there's anybody who thinks, this is not a risk. If you fire Dennis Lindsey and hire Danny Ainge, it's not very risky at all. Your upside is huge. I don't think anybody's talking about hiring a first-time general manager, or I think what the Jazz are doing is exactly what all great organizations, business or sports, do, which is you realize that you're good, you're not great. And to get to that next level, you have to surround yourself with people who have done what you're trying to do. Dwayne Wade would be one of those people. I think Danny Ainge would be one of those people. He built a championship organization, and I think that's exactly what Ryan Smith is trying to do. He clearly is a good businessman. He's a billionaire for a reason, and a tech billionaire at that. He has close relationships with guys like Dwayne Wade. I don't think that you should sell that short. I think when you realize that Dwayne Wade is here for a reason. He didn't buy into the Utah Jazz to be mediocre.
Yeah.
So my feeling is that you're seeing now that Dwayne Wade has influence. And I think it actually is a very, very good thing that you have not heard a peep from the Utah Jazz in a week. All you've seen is Donovan Mitchell at New York Met games. You've seen Rudy Gobert wandering the wilderness of Utah, which I'm perfectly fine with. I think you need time to make pragmatic decisions. And that's not, again, as many people are, fire this guy, trade that guy, cut this guy. Like, you don't do that. You have to take your emotion out of it. You have to take your fandom out of it. And you have to make, the word is pragmatic, basketball decisions. I think hiring Danny Ainge after you bring in Dwayne Wade as a minority owner, I think is absolutely the right way to go about it.
100%. Yeah, I think it's a great move.
Yeah. Let's see. Brylark says, I'm surprised they haven't announced firings yet. Driftwood said it's time for front office changes. Dante Mage says, I want to just keep saying this to manifest it. Lonzo. Brandon Whiteside says, Rudy for Wiseman and the 7th pick may even try to get Wiggins in the deal. Okay. I don't know where this idea came from, that the Jazz are going to trade Rudy Gobert. You realize Rudy's not even allowed to be traded right now. Can't do that until you get to, I think it's October 12th. And by the way, ask yourself, is it smart to trade Rudy Gobert for a rookie who's coming off of a significant knee injury that cost him half of a season? It's not smart. That's the kind of deal that torpedoes any chance you have of competing next year.
And again, it's not about trading Rudy per se.
No.
I feel like the trade Rudy bandwagon started after Terrence Mann went off in that game, because it was Rudy who was supposed to be guarding him, and Rudy just left him there, and it's like Rudy, and it's like, no, man. Like, they schemed to leave Terrence Mann open in the corner because they just simply didn't believe that he was going to make all those shots. Do you want to have a conversation about adjustments in game on Terrence Mann? Sure, that's a different conversation. But my point, and what I'm getting at here, is that, what went down doesn't equal, hey, we need to trade Rudy Gobert. What went down in that game with Terrence Mann and Rudy Gobert means, hey, we got to get better defensively on the perimeter. That's you're asking a rim protector to guard a guard in the corner. That doesn't make too much sense. I mean, remember, this is a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year guy. I'm not the biggest Rudy Gobert fan myself, but I'm also not going to sit here in fantasy land and say that you should trade him for James Wiseman, who has a lot of proving to do and still has a lot of building of his body to do. That just is not a smart idea.
And by the way, Andrew Wiggins, those deals don't add up.
Yeah.
Andrew Wiggins has repeatedly showed himself not to be a big game player. The money doesn't add up. How in any world is that even a good like for either side of that. And by the way, you're not trading Rudy Gobert to a championship contending team
in the West.
Why would you trade him to the Golden State Warriors at that? Yeah, Danny Ainge left the Celtics to retire. Why would he even be available? Michael Burton, he didn't leave the Celtics to retire. He left the Celtics because it was time to leave the Celtics. And I think everybody knew right from the jump that Danny didn't leave the Celtics to retire. I think that was the messaging that was used to facilitate the change that had to be made in Boston. I mean, something had to give. I'm still shocked that Brad Stevens replaced him there. Like, that's shocking.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
you failed.
I didn't love that. Yeah, I didn't love that.
There are some people in life who don't have to work hard and who everything is handed to them. Brad Stevens. I'm not saying Brad doesn't work hard. You just failed into some luck multiple times. Like, I just don't. How were you not fired as the coach of the Celtics after last year?
Yeah.
And then you had a massively disappointing season, and they didn't fire you. They promoted you. That, to me, is a shocking move out of the Celtics.
Guy's a good salesman, man.
Yeah, I mean, I just, that's amazing to me. How certain are you that front office changes are going to be made, Driftwood asked. Well, I'm not certain at all. I'm just reading the tea leaves and, NBA people chatting about Dwayne Wade lobbying, Ryan Smith to make significant changes. You get embarrassingly shown the door in the playoffs. I mean, that's not something that is an owner's going to stand by and just watch. I think it's very difficult to just stand by and watch.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty good about it. I think it's probably 85-15 that they're going to make significant changes in the front office, because you're not changing the roster significantly as much as Jazz fans want to talk about significant changes, and you don't have a draft pick that you can really trade. You don't have money that you can trade. You don't have a lot of contracts that you can trade. There's really only two, in Bojan Bogdanovic and Royce O'Neal. I mean, you're not in a position where you're going to be able to make those trades. And I also think, by the way, the Rudy Gobert contract is part of the decision to make change in the front office. Because remember, they only agreed to that contract last winter. So it's not like that was, this is years long. They haven't paid him a penny of that $205 million yet. So they're just starting that deal. You're not trading a guy that you just signed to the largest contract in franchise history. You're not doing that.
Yeah.
So I think the core of this team is good. The depth of this team, from the third guy down to the 15th guy, is not very good at all. You're not athletic. You're not. I mean, you lack a lot. If you look at the Atlanta Hawks, who we're going to talk about in a minute, look at the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, it is remarkable to me that the Atlanta Hawks are doing what they're doing. Well, it's not really that remarkable because they drafted and developed all the talent pretty much that's on that roster. Outside of Bogdan Bogdanovic, by the way, who's hurt with this knee injury. I mean, you look at Trey Young. That whole roster is young, stacked, athletic players.
Well, and you notice what it takes to do that. It takes a couple of seasons of letting those guys play together to kind of start to figure it out, and there's a maturing process that happens. It wasn't like overnight they just turned into some championship caliber team. I mean, this is a team that drafted, developed, and now are very much outperforming their expectations. I mean, I don't think that anybody in their right mind would have had the Atlanta Hawks going to the Eastern Conference Finals. But you have, a team in Philly that, again, is largely a disappointment, as usual. They've been that for the last several years. And I think that the Atlanta Hawks just happen to be ready to go. And also, I'd just like to say that this is yet another team, much like the Suns, who is clearly battle-tested and able to win on the road. And I think that is another small improvement that I'd love to see this Jazz team make. A little bit more grit, a little bit more toughness, not as soft of a team. I would love to see that improve. That's a little bit harder to do, but it would be nice to pick up some toughness on the team.
Yeah, and I think that the lone major decision is going to be Mike Conley. I mean, And I think you're not going to invest heavily in Mike Conley. I mean, how do you justify paying Mike Conley? What would he command? 18 to 20 million a year?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
How do you justify paying Mike Conley 2 years and $40 million? Like, I don't know how you do that. Is Mike Conley really going to take a $12 million pay cut? How is that a friendly team deal? Well, let's say you non-guarantee the second year until he plays 70 games next year. You can't guarantee the second year unless he XYZ.
Yeah.
Is Mike Conley really going to do that when he knows he can go down the street and he can go to New York? He can go to, Boston. Boston traded Kemba Walker. If Mike Conley goes to Boston and gets an $18 million deal, a 2-year, $40 million deal, are you telling me he's not going to take that deal and he's going to come back to Utah and take a 2-year deal where it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? I mean,
for either side.
Yeah, I just don't understand. I know Mike Conley's value. When Mike Conley's available to play, he is an elite point guard in this league. He leaves you at the most important times. I mean, Donovan Mitchell's hurt. Conley gets hurt in that back-to-back Minnesota series, and he's never the same. Doesn't play in the Clippers series. And then when he did in the last game, he was a zero. He was a non-factor. You cannot count on Mike Conley. And it is, in my opinion, you would be very wise to suffer for a year, because a year from now you're going to have incredibly more flexibility on the cap. But you're going to have an opportunity with a lot of free agents that come up next year to really then impact this roster.
Yeah.
So I would not be all out, sell out, let's get Mike Conley back on a 2-year, $40 million deal. I think that's crazy. James Knight says, I know the Jazz underachieved, but is it an overreaction with all the hysterical trade talk? Well, I think for Rudy Gobert, it's an overreaction. I mean, a lot of people blame Rudy for what happened. It's not Rudy Gobert's fault. It's not. He is a limited player who was asked to do things he's not capable of doing. And I will again just say, if you're asking Rudy Gobert to protect the paint and the corner three at the same time, that's a you problem, not a Rudy Gobert problem.
If you're asking anybody.
I mean, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
Michael Burton says, Jazz definitely lack athleticism, and if there was a few added in the offseason with a core, this current season could go further. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to move guys off the roster to add. You are hard capped, which means you cannot sign any free agent or acquire talent that costs you money. You cannot do that. You're hard capped. And right now, I think their tax bill is like $40 million. I mean, in a market the size of Salt Lake, it's tough to justify that when you don't win a championship. Burton also says, regarding Conley, could hope he has built up a love of the area, chance that this team can go all the way if he's healthy.
Yeah, but
again, when has he been healthy? When has Mike Conley shown you that you can count on him to be healthy to make a championship run?
Not anytime recently, and anytime in his career.
Always playing hurt.
Yeah.
Always playing hurt. Driftwood says O'Neal is a midget in terms of power forwards. Well, he's not a power forward. He is, in my estimation, I would look at Royce O'Neal much more as a 3 than a 4. And I can't remember who it was. Somebody on Twitter the other day was trying to compare Royce O'Neal to Draymond Green. And he's as physical. He's just like Draymond Green. No, he's not. He's not a 4. He's a 3. He's asked to guard 4s. And Royce O'Neal is a good defender. He's just not a guy that is irreplaceable. He is a guy that you can replicate.
The difference is Draymond can legitimately guard 1 through 5, depending on who the 5 is. He can legit guard small 5s, and he can play good perimeter defense, and that's because of his build and how strong he is. So again, I feel like with this Jazz roster, we're looking to just absolutely shred guys for their lack of ability instead of just saying, hey, this roster needs more.
Yes.
We have to move these guys, and we have to get guys who can do more. And, whether we're looking at Rudy and them asking him to guard Terrence Mann in the corner, whether we're talking about Royce O'Neal being able to guard fours and also being able to guard a one, and that's not Royce O'Neal. Royce O'Neal is guarding, primarily you want him guarding a three, maybe a four. But that's it. That's where he's going to be at. You're putting him on a wing player who scores. But I just think overall we have to stop saying, well, Rudy Gobert sucks, so we need to trade him. We got to stop doing that. Rudy Gobert has a specific skill set that's incredibly valuable on a team that's built right.
Right, but you have to acknowledge his limitations as an organization.
Agreed.
And
yeah.
I don't think this Dennis Lindsay front office acknowledges those limitations. And the scary thing? I don't know that Dennis Lindsay and his front office folks see Rudy Gobert's limitations. I don't think. How do I say this gently? If I'm Dwayne Wade, I laugh at the Rudy Gobert contract. When he signed that deal, remember the Shaquille O'Neal, most pundits around the NBA laughed at that deal. It's an embarrassingly large deal for a player that is so limited. And everybody said, well, you just don't know Rudy Gobert's game. And well, it turns out we did know Rudy Gobert's game. When we told you that contract was a mistake, it's a mistake because the team and the front office and the talent evaluators of the Utah Jazz looked at Rudy Gobert with rose-colored glasses on, that he's going to be able to do this and he'll make up for that. And at the end of the day, none of that came true. None of it came to fruition. And it's mainly because you don't have the talent around him to allow him to do that. That's really what it comes down to.
And it's just not a difficult concept either. I feel like the Rudy Gobert situation, we should be treating Rudy Gobert like pretty much every other big in the league and giving him extra credit for how good of a defender he is. I mean, think about other bigs in the league. We always have the conversation about how Joel and Jokic are better scorers. Okay, yes, they're better scorers than Rudy, but they're probably not on his level defensively. I look at Valanciunas is a great example just because they went head-to-head, right? Him and Valanciunas battled. Him and Valanciunas banged for that entire series. So I don't know. I just think that, we're sitting here having a conversation about the fact that the Jazz are in a terrible cap situation this year, and they're probably not going to be able to do a whole lot, and they're going to have to wait till next year till some of these contracts expire. Well, part of that reason is the Rudy Gobert contract, and it's tough to me if you're Ryan Smith. It's tough to swallow the fact that they gave him this contract, and that happened before you were here. It happened before you were here, and now you got to deal with it.
It happened right as he got here, I guess, is the right as he began to take control of this team. But I also look at other bigs around the league that are limited, and I start saying to myself, hey, where is he in regard to Ben Simmons, who's often compared? Rudy Gobert is better than Ben Simmons. Where is he? Look at Giannis last night. Where is Rudy Gobert compared to Giannis Antetokounmpo?
See, I'd rather have Giannis.
And you know why I'd rather have Giannis? Because he hit those free throws. And he's not a great free throw shooter. But the thing about Giannis is that he at least can impact the game offensively throughout the game. Now he's at a 0 in the last 5 minutes. We saw it again last night. But he impacts the game significantly on the offensive end all game long for 43 minutes. And I think that's something that Rudy's going to have to develop and do. At the price tag, that he's at currently, man, if you're not able to impact the game offensively, boy, it's a real problem.
Yeah.
And you can see now that the Jazz salary cap is landlocked on that deal. And the problem was they couldn't score. They could not score. Now, yes, everybody makes a bigger deal over Terrence Mann, all these threes in the corner, and I got blocked on Twitter by Tyler the other day over Terrence Mann. The problem is you focus on Terrence Mann. I'm focused on the fact that you couldn't outscore the Clippers. That's what I'm focused on. I'm focused on the fact that, Joe Ingles, Bojan Bogdanovic, Royce O'Neal Rudy Gobert were not factors offensively. And a lot of people will say, well, Rudy had, dunks and, oh my God.
Yeah.
And boy, on all those threes, he was 6 of 7, and they lost. Because they could not. You have one guy at that point that you're turning to, because Mike Conley's playing on one leg, and Donovan Mitchell's playing on another leg, and you really, you have one guy, and there was no way that Bojan Bogdanovic was going to come through in that situation.
Yeah, and I also think the Jazz got away from who they were. In that first quarter, they were raining threes and everything, but throughout the postseason, it was clearly a talking point that the Clippers were able to, and really Memphis at times was able to get the Jazz away from what got them there, which was the three-point shooting, the ball movement, that style of offense. And I don't know. I don't like the idea of saying that teams are able to just do whatever they want to the Jazz and force the Jazz to operate in a certain way, because I think if the Jazz chose to move the ball, they could get a lot better of a look, but it just seems like they just get away from that. And again, I think that's because you're kind of in this gray area offensively. When this team is ticking and they're going right and they're 100%, the ball's flying all over the place and they're finding open threes constantly, and it's a real problem. But that's so rare for them because of the lack of athleticism and because, Don tries to play the hero ball and everything because he doesn't trust his teammates. So they need to make moves. The problem is it's going to be difficult to make moves. There's no other way to say it other than that.
It's interesting. There's a lot of comments on Mike Conley. James Knight, wasn't Mike Conley an all-star? Let's not hang a guy for getting hurt. Okay, well, it's not that Mike Conley got hurt. Mike Conley's always hurt. He's never, not one time in his entire career, played 82 games. Never. It's never happened, not once. Right? And if you go back and look at, throw out 2019-2020, the bubble year, right, where he played, where he played 47 games. I look at 51 this year, 70 in 2018-19, 12 and 17-18, 69, 56, 70, 73. The last time he played in the 80s was 2012-2013 when he played 80 games. And it right out of the gate, he was hurt as a rookie. Mike Conley didn't get hurt. He's always hurt.
Yeah.
That's who the guy is. You knew that when you paid him or traded for him. And I would remind you again that you would love to have Jay Crowder, and that I'm not saying that trade's a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. All I'm saying is to believe that Mike Conley is going to all of a sudden start playing a full season and you can count on him, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not. Why do you think it was so easy for us to project in January that he would be hurt in the playoffs? Because he's always hurt in the playoffs. He's always missing games late in the season. Mike E says Mike Conley's not getting hurt. Exactly, Mike. He's always hurt.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Michael Burton says Gobert is only 28. He can still get better. I don't disagree with that.
But what does getting better look like?
What skill set is he going to add? Because what he needs is a back-to-the-basket game or a mid-range game. He's not going to ever have a mid-range game. That's just not who that guy's physical build is. If you find me a center 7-footer that's built like him, the only guy I can think of is Kevin Durant, and they're completely different body types. I'm telling you that Rudy Gobert needs a back-to-the-basket game. That's where his development could be. He needs to learn how to dribble the ball. Again, the numbers don't lie. I think he's 23% when you make Rudy Gobert dribble the ball once or more. I think his field goal percentage is 23%. When he doesn't dribble, he's in the 60s. Do the math. The guy has no footwork. The guy cannot put the ball on the floor. He doesn't have an offensive game. Yeah. He is a dunker, which has value in this league. I agree with that. But you've got to be able to play with your back to the basket. A flip shot, a hook shot, the ability to bank the ball into the hole. Any of that would be a major upgrade for Rudy Gobert. Because right now, I don't think even the most ardent Utah Jazz fan can't argue the fact he's awkward around the rim when he's not dunking it.
Yeah, and I think offensively, if he had any kind of, back to the basket game and he was more of a threat, that would open things up for you as a team that likes to take a lot of threes and likes to move the ball. Again, you look at these bigs, a big, basically from a basketball perspective, if you have a big that can be just even a little bit of a threat on his own individually and then can pass a little bit, which he has shown the ability to do from time to time. Doesn't do it a lot, but when they run plays for him, he has shown the ability to pass out from the paint to a guy on the wing. If he could get better at passing a little bit, just a little bit, and could get a little hook shot, that would open things up way more for the Jazz.
But I think if you look at the way this NBA is built, and I mean to belabor this point on Rudy Gobert, but there's no traditional center that is just back to the basket, go get me a bucket. Like, those guys really don't exist. I mean, Joel Embiid to a certain point, I guess, but Joel plays away from the basket. He's a mid-range player. He's not a guy that is, in the paint, throw it to him. Like, he's a guy that shoots fadeaways. He's a guy that shoots little 12-foot jumpers, shoots a three. Clint Capella last night was part of the problem for Atlanta in the fourth quarter. I start looking at the best big men in the league, and they're all power forwards. I mean, this is the Tim Duncan conversation. Tim Duncan's best weapon was not a dunk. It was a mid-range bank shot that he mastered unlike anybody else. And that went on to think about, Pau Gasol with the Lakers. If you think about, just all of the evolution of the big in the NBA, they've moved further and further and further away from the basket.
A guy like LaMarcus Aldridge, maybe?
Yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge is an interesting guy. Look at Al Horford. Jeez, I have no recall memory. Al Horford, who just got traded back to Boston because what did Boston need? They needed a mid-range big. They needed a big guy that could shoot and defend. That's exactly who Al Horford is. So they traded Kemba. They traded their point guard to get a power forward who can hit a jump shot. That, to me, is exactly what a big is in this league.
Yeah.
It just is one of those things where the big that is so limited really does not help you. Jordan Crabtree, Steven Adams is a great example of that. Steven Adams has a lot of value. He's a big bruising player. But is he on a championship team?
Yeah.
He's not.
What do you think of a younger big like a Jaren Jackson Jr.? What do you think of that style of big who's a little bit more athletic and gets up and down more, but obviously still has a lot of growth needed because he's a young player.
I think he shoots way too many threes. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. fell in love with the three and forgot you got to go to the basket. Now, I mean, when you shoot 28% from three last year, you probably ought to go to the basket more. And by the way, he's also a guy that's injured a lot.
Yeah.
So I know he can make the three, but a guy like that at least is a weapon to you because he's long, he blocks shots, he can defend, and he can make the corner three. So I think he's more the prototype of what's coming. But this league, I don't know how else to describe it other than to say watch the Western Conference Finals tonight. Ivica Zubac is very limited in this series. Today's big man has to be able to do like DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton can dunk on you, but the problem is he also has a myriad of little hooks and push shots and jumpers. And I mean, DeAndre Ayton, believe it or not, can actually shoot the three. They don't ever ask him to because you don't need him to do that. But the guy can shoot. He's got a jumper. He's got a free throw line jumper. And to me, DeAndre Ayton, that's about as far as I'm willing to go with a big. That's it.
Yeah.
And not to be a dick about Rudy Gobert, I just wouldn't have him on my roster.
Yeah.
I would rather take an elite offensive player than an elite defensive player. It's Devin Booker. Look how much better Devin Booker's gotten defensively than he ever, at any point in his career, Devin Booker's never been this good as a defender. Well, you always knew he was an elite offensive player, right? Look at Trey Young. Does Trey Young play a whole lot of defense? He doesn't. Trey Young needs to lift some weights, but Trey Young also scored 48 points last night and had 11 dimes and did it in the paint and did it with a three and did it with a shimmy. Now, Milwaukee's defense fell apart, and this is my other point before we move on. You can't be a team built on defense and expect to win a championship because you're always going to run into Terrence Mann in the corner or Bobby Portis not coming up on Trey Young of all people.
When did that change, do you feel like? Because it used to be in the league that the classic saying of defense wins you championships. It used to be like that's how teams were built. But I have to agree. I mean, I look at it. Maybe it started when like Steph came into the league, maybe, or like when the Warriors. You think it started before that?
It started when Magic Johnson came into the league. You realize that a gifted offensive player was always going to be better than a gifted defensive player. And I think the exception to those rules really went away when Michael came into the league and started dominating in the late 80s, because the Detroit Pistons were not a gifted offensive team. They were a gifted defensive team. And that worked for a minute because they got incredibly physical. And then Jordan started lifting weights. And you realize very quickly you can body up Michael Jordan, but now he's got a little pull-up jumper, and now he's got a fadeaway, and now he's dunking on Bill Laimbeer. Because Jordan and Pippen together formed this dynamic duo of two elite offensive players that was always going to be better than an elite defensive team. And then the Rodman Chicago Bulls with Phil Jackson in that last three-peat turned into a team that was an elite defensive team that was also elite offensively. That's what the model was. And then the Golden State Warriors showed up and started shooting from the locker room and from the upper deck and making threes. And Steph is really where that three-point revolution took hold. And the league is always maturing and changing, and it's secular. You cycle through the Jordan rules.
Well, it's like the mid-range game coming back.
Yeah, the mid-range game absolutely is coming back. We went through a 3-4 year period where everybody wanted to shoot threes. Well, now we're in the gym playing basketball again, and so we're seeing these elite high school players that are in one-on-one coaching sessions. And what are they working on? Double dribble between the leg to the elbow extended for a mid-range jumper, because you can't just shoot threes anymore.
Yeah.
When we used to play ball at LA Fitness in Phoenix, several of the ASU basketball players worked out at that gym with their skills coaches, and all of them were working on three-point shots. Now, 3 years later, here we are, and all of them are working on mid-range games.
Yeah.
So the game has changed quite a bit, and I think that's the thing that you have to add to it. So Eric and Raleigh says passing from the post is a lost art in the NBA, the new market inefficiency. But what you're also seeing is when Rudy Gobert gets the ball in the high post and throws a laser to the corner, it's incredibly effective on this team.
Yes.
And I think one of the adjustments Quinn Snyder is going to have to make is you're going to have to teach, develop, and demand that Rudy Gobert pass. And if you can throw him the ball in the middle of the paint, guys will collapse, and he's just going to kick that ball out. And, not to talk about myself.
Yeah, you are, pretty gifted,
For a guy who
In my
can't.
eyes, he's the greatest to ever do it.
Yeah, that's exactly my game in basketball. Throw me the ball because I'd rather pass than score. I got a little fadeaway game. But every weekend we play basketball, and every weekend somebody jokes about how they felt the ball go by their ear. Big guys,
joke.
Big guys have to be able to pass. And Rudy Gobert has to learn to pass. I think if you look at James Wiseman's already a really good passer. I think if you look at, any of the best teams, they all move the ball really well. Look at the Atlanta Hawks last night. Again, was just a virtuoso performance. Unbelievable. Look at the play that led to the alley-oop the other night, excuse me.
Yeah.
That play where Devin Booker intentionally dribbles into a double team, passes it to Jay Crowder, who throws it into the corner to a wide-open Mikal Bridges. Ball movement is what wins you championships.
And it's so funny. The Jazz thrived on ball movement. We saw it all season long. And what happened? It disappeared in the postseason.
Stopped. It absolutely stopped. It's remarkable.
And I don't know how you explain that.
Hero ball is how you explain
Yeah,
that.
I guess so.
40, and this is what I said at the time.
You did. 100% you did.
45 for 45 it looks great on paper. It's terrible for the team.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell's 45-point game was unbelievable.
It was beautiful to watch.
And you lost the series.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, it's not great for the team. Cody Strickland says, I wonder when the fireworks show is going to happen with the Jazz organization. I would think in the next couple of weeks. I would think a week to 10 days at most.
Yeah.
Because once the NBA Finals get here, pretty much, and I would guess this year because we're seeing everybody else coming back to the arena, the NBA Finals, and I think I've probably covered a dozen or so NBA Finals or something like that. What you see at the NBA Finals is you see all the meetings. because all the head coaches are there and the GMs are there. And, it's like league meetings that aren't league meetings.
Right.
And a lot of business gets done there. And you have to, at that point, I think you have to be ready to go. And then the league meetings happen. And oh, by the way, then Summer League, it's the 4th of July. I want you to remember this. It's the 4th of July. The Jazz Summer League, I think, is in early August.
It is, yes.
All this business is getting done at Summer League.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we get to go to Summer League this year. But all this business gets done at Summer League, too. You've got to have your people in place. So I don't think it'll be long. Michael Burton says the Golden State Warriors championship showed that small ball with athletes wins, and the league started moving towards that, and the fouls called favored offense. Oh, there's no doubt about that. Brandon Whiteside says Ayton is the first overall pick. Jazz are not close to getting that type of pick. Well, no, the problem is not the picks that you're going to get now. It's the picks that you've wasted previously.
You had.
Yeah,
you
that's
were in
why,
that position. You never had the number 1 overall pick, but you were top 5.
That's why that's why you're in the position you're in, by the way.
Yeah.
Mirzinski, good morning to you. He says, I know that Chris Paul is coming back from protocol, but is it really going to help now Booker and Ayton won't have the pressure on them? They can just play their game. Oh, I don't think there's any doubt that Chris Paul adds to what the Suns did the other night. If you're the Clippers, I mean, it's got to be demoralizing to watch those 2 games slip away from you in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you should have won that. And typically, if Chris Paul wasn't coming back, if you weren't injecting an all-star, all-NBA caliber point guard, you would feel like, okay, well, the Suns role players aren't going to play as well on the road as they do at home. Cam Johnson's probably not knocking down all those jumpers. We're going to win games at home. We'll win our games at home. Well, the problem is now you're injecting what I think is one of the best mid-range players in the NBA, and Chris Paul. And you're what that does is that makes Ayton better, that makes Booker better, that makes everybody better.
Yes.
Because when Chris Paul's playing, and again, water's wet, Chris Paul's hurt in the playoffs. But when Chris Paul's playing, I mean, there's just so much more space on the floor, and the Clippers are already struggling, and you can see they're already demoralized. The DeMarcus Cousins shove of Devin Booker at the end of the game the other night, they're already frustrated and demoralized.
Yeah.
And now you add Chris Paul back to that mix. I think the Clippers are in a real – this is not the Jazz. This is not the Mavericks.
No, this is a complete team. And, I think Chris Paul coming back, what that really does when we get down to the nitty-gritty in a basketball game in L.A. against the Clippers, when the Clippers go on that 10-12-0 run, it allows the Suns to absorb that run and answer quickly because they can get to that mid-range spot so consistently. That really, to me, is what the effect of Chris Paul is, because like everyone was just saying, when you bring him back and Devin Booker can be off the ball and be primarily a scorer on offense for you, it just opens everything up, man. It gives you a lot of options and a lot of flexibility, and frankly, it allows you to win games on the road that you probably wouldn't have won otherwise. And I just think that for the Clippers is it's not a great thing. You're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, and I think one of the more interesting parts of this series is Kawhi Leonard's absence. I mean, he's got a sprained knee. It's been a week, I guess a week and a half since that happened.
Yeah.
Like, does he make an appearance in this series? Because if Kawhi comes back, I mean, who knows what Kawhi would come back. I mean, that's an interesting wrench in the gears here. But I just don't see how the Clippers can win 4 out of 5. I mean, that's what they have to do. You realize that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
When you're down 2-0, there's only 5 games left in the series. It's a 7-game series. To win a series, you got to win 4 games. You got to win 4 out of 5 games.
And 1 in Phoenix.
I just don't see that happening.
Yeah.
I just don't see that happening. Mr. E says, what do you guys think about Joe Dumars? He built a team who makes number 1 championship, 1 NBA Finals, 5 conference. Yeah, the problem with Joe is, he's employed. I think he's got some crazy title with the Sacramento Kings. But Joe's had a lot more failure than success. And I think Danny Ainge has dealt with, what are we even talking about? Danny Ainge and Ryan Smith are friends. They went to BYU together.
Yeah.
Danny Ainge has built a championship. He's a local guy. Like, if Danny Ainge is available, you're making that move. I mean, I think Danny Ainge would be great.
It's a no-brainer, man.
And my hope would be that he would keep Quinn Snyder, but I mean, there's so many quality coaches available. And again, my number one would always be Rick Carlisle. I think he's so good at developing young talent. But it is what it is. Jordan McDonald says Mike Conley's George Hill 2.0.
Yeah, except that George Hill plays and Mike Conley doesn't.
Yeah, and I mean, when listen, again, when Mike Conley's right, I mean, that guy he's still an elite point guard in this league. I mean, he's going to wind up, my guess is that the Jazz would like to have Mike Conley back. I can't see doing that on a 2-year deal for $40 million. I just think you're handicapping yourself. My guess is that if he doesn't come here, he'll have 2-3 offers. There's not very many teams that need point guards, frankly. I think about the New York Knicks. Are the first team that comes to mind. I think about the Boston Celtics that come to mind.
Somebody will sign him. I mean, he's definitely going to play. It just is. This Jazz roster, we got to stop taking risks on players. Like, we got to stop signing the guy that's always hurt or like signing the guy that's got one skill set and that's it. Like, you can't do that anymore in this league. You got to have a more complete team than that.
I don't even know if I should read this. I'm going to read it because eBay the Sofa Surfer is one of our best.
Mm-hmm.
But come on. It says Jazz should hire Rick Pitino. Donovan would love that. They're both Louisville guys. Like, I'm trying not to make an Italian restaurant. I'm trying not to make an Italian restaurant sex and joke, but Rick Pitino's morals don't fit into our community. I think that's also, and if you think Ryan Smith doesn't consider that, you're crazy. On Rick Pitino.
Wow.
What about a sign and trade? Ace says, what about a sign and trade for Mike Conley? That makes a lot of sense. Well, does it though? I mean, so if you're going to sign and trade him, it's going to be a big contract. And the other issue is signing and trading Mike Conley. I just don't think that's an option. I think it's incredibly difficult to do it. There's so many restrictions time-wise. There's so many restrictions because you're hard capped.
Yeah, I don't even think you can do it because of the cap.
No, you would be able to. It's just you'd have to find the perfect dance partner, and that guy doesn't exist. I mean, there's just, and why would you? No, the complexity. Why would you bring the complexities of that into your boardroom? Like to me, you're either going to sign the guy or you're going to let him walk. That's it. And I mean, like what kind of money would you bring Mike Conley back at?
I mean, I'd love to see him in the mid-teens. I don't want to pay him 20. If he's willing to do 15, 17, somewhere in there, I could potentially see it. But if I'm the executive of the team and I'm the one making the decisions, the first place I start is calling around the league to see what people think of Bogey, trying to get his value and what I could potentially do with him. And then trying to identify a suitor to make a trade to free up some cap space. Because I do agree. Earlier in the show, we got a comment about like Alonzo Ball, who's a I don't remember if he's a free agent or if he is actually restricted, but he is available. My point is I would try to make trades to lower the cap, number and try to bring in some effective low-cost free agents that could do some things for me, And then next year, when some of these contracts expire, that's when I would go like all out, work my ass off to build a championship caliber team because I'd actually have the money to do it. I'd actually be in position to like build a championship caliber roster. Right now, I just feel like, right now you're just going to have to like, for lack of a better word, you're just going to have to kind of patchwork this thing together to get the money right. Like, that's how bad the situation is.
I just don't see that you have a whole lot of flexibility here. I mean, I think when you look at Mike Conley and you look at, you're hard capped for a reason. You have a lot of money out for this coming season already. I mean,
that's the thing with the that's the thing with the Rudy situation. If you look at the LA teams, just as an example, you look at the Clippers and you look at the Lakers, and both of those teams, with the way they built their cap, have anywhere between 38 to 45% of their cap tied up in 2 players.
Right.
And those 2 players are star players who can do every single thing the game demands. They're not limited. They don't have just one skill set. They can do everything. Now, the Jazz, for whatever reason, went with that same model. The problem is that one of the quote unquote superstars on your team, one of the 2 best players on your team, can't do everything. That's the problem. That's why this roster is in a precarious situation, because you committed all this money to a guy who has a limited skill set. Not a bad skill set, but a limited skill set.
How are the Lakers in a better cap position than the Utah Jazz?
Right? Like, if you're looking at their cap right now, you see that LeBron and AD are obviously making the most money, and everybody else, and again, this is the same thing for the Clippers, everybody else outside of AD and LeBron and Kawhi and PG are getting paid like 1-year deals or 1-year deals with an incentive late in second year on low dollar values, and that's how they're doing it.
Yeah, I think you're trading Kyle Kuzma. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Right now, the LA Lakers only have $116 million in their active cap. Their total cap's 121. Now, they have a lot of free agency to deal with. They have cap holds for guys like Schroeder, Caruso, Talon Horton-Tucker. You have some guys you're going to have to deal with, but they have far more flexibility. That's amazing.
But that's a position you want to be in, right? You want to have your top end 2 best players on the team secured, and then you want to have flexibility with the rest of the roster. That's truly the mistake here. That's where the issues come in.
Yeah, and this is not to be a jerk, but this is where I go back to the Gobert contract. You're kicking in $205 million. You're paying him $40 million a year.
And that's what I'm saying. If you look at it in percentages of their cap, I can't remember the exact number of the Jazz cap. I think it's like 120 something as well.
126.
126. So you're talking about. If you look at it in percentages, I think Rudy Gobert is like 20 some odd % of their cap, and Don is another 20 something %. That's a lot, man. That's a lot for a guy who is limited. And I know I keep using the word limited, but that's exactly the way you would describe him. He's a phenomenal defensive player, but he's also a big, so you can't switch everything with him. Doesn't have an offensive game. Like, there's limitations there.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. It is. Yeah, it's really frustrating. Hello from Manila, LVL 307. What's up with you? He says, what do you guys think of this year's draft? I think it's really shallow.
Yeah.
I think it's 5 players, and I think really if we're being really honest, I think it's Cade Cunningham and everybody else.
Yeah.
I think obviously everybody's on Jalen Suggs, but Cade Cunningham's the gift here. I think there's probably 3 superstars in this draft. That's it. And you're going to find some gems, but I don't know. Anyway. That Rudy, $40 million.
Yeah.
That's frustrating with the Lakers cap. It really is.
Because they're just in a much better position, and that's the thing. Like, not only are you losing on the floor to, again, you had a successful season, you went to the postseason, you did all that, but at the end of the day, you're losing to these better teams on the floor, and you're losing in the offseason because of the choices you're making.
And
that's
he
hard
leveraged
to live with.
the Jazz into that contract too.
Yeah, they negotiated and they gave in, and I just would not have done that.
And everybody rips Rob Pelinka, and I'm telling you, the guy, when you pay that much money, and this is another reason why I think Danny Ainge is a good option in Utah. When you compete at that level and you win at that level, you have to identify lesser talent. You have to identify weed smokers like Alex Caruso, who, by the way, did you guys hear about this? He got arrested in the airport in Texas because he had a grinder that had weed in it.
Whoa, Grinder app?
Yeah, well,
Grinder app?
You know all about the Grinder app.
Grinder app.
But it's shocking that he would get like, what are you doing, dude? Anyway, they are able to make the best of a guy like a Cantavius Caldwell-Pope, a guy like an Alex Caruso.
Ben McLemore.
Talon Horton-Tucker. Ben McLemore, who all he did is come in and shoot threes, because what did they tell him they needed him to do?
Shoot threes.
Shoot threes, and that's exactly what he did. And that's what this organization has to get better. They have to find the Ben McLemore. They have to find the Austin Rivers, the Mike James, the Talon Horton-Tuckers of the world. Like, that's the guy that you need.
Yeah.
And the Jazz have historically not been good at that. Where is that secondary player that it really complements, and it not to go back and pick the scab, but it's like the Malone Stockton teams, the way they were built. The Jeff Malones, not the Karl Malones, the Brian Russells, look at Jeff Hornacek, look at the contribution he made that you were able to get from him. Like, those are the things that you don't have on this team.
Yeah.
That theory, that way of thinking,
mentality.
That's what's missing from this team, and it's interesting to me that it just it's so frustrating.
It is.
Spence Checketts at ESPN 700 had Scott Layden on his show a couple of weeks ago, and it's fascinating to listen to that conversation because you need a roster constructor in your front office, and that's why I'm into Danny Ainge. He's always been able to make big trades. He's always been able to fix caps. Like, he has vision. Like, that's what this front office doesn't have. They're not roster constructors, and it makes me crazy.
Yeah.
You're talking about Danny Ainge. Do I have to say anything more than Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum?
Draft.
Like, he drafts well. He trades well. Now, did Kemba Walker and Kyrie work out? They didn't work out. And ultimately, that's probably why he lost his job.
But you could see the vision in that, at least.
But you can see why he did that.
Yeah.
Like that to me, yeah. Anyway, what do you got tonight? Suns, Clippers, Game 3, Staples Center. I'm going to take the Suns. I think this is going to be a blazing shootout. I think this is going to be a 120-120 game.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I was going to go Suns as well, and I think that the physicality of Game 2 is going to carry over into Game 3, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how does Paul George respond to missing those free throws. Does he come out and give us a 38-16 performance, or are we going to get 25-5 Paul George? Like, what are we getting? Because I think for them to win, have any kind of hope in this series, they definitely have to win tonight. And frankly, for them to win, he's got to be 30-plus every night. And so that's why I say I think the Suns just have more breathing room. And with Chris Paul coming back, I think they have more options. And they're just a difficult team to deal with because you've got DA going well now. Like, Chris Paul hits the mid-range.
What's the issue? They didn't have Chris Paul. They got a huge performance out of Book. But on top of that, when Book didn't give you a huge performance, he passed well, and Ayton and Campaign crushed you.
Guy had 29 points. Campaign had 29 points. How's that even a reality? How's that happen?
A career high, 29 points. DeAndre Ayton, the problem is, if you're going to put all your chips in on stopping Devin Booker, and I think you should, you can't let DeAndre Ayton and Cameron Payne beat you. And they did. And I'm telling you, if Chris Paul comes back tonight, by the way, did anybody see this story about Patrick Beverley cracking Ty Lue after the Game 2 loss?
I didn't see that. What did he say?
And I'll find it's on Clutch Points. Had it, I think. Patrick Beverley going in on Ty Lue. I don't understand it. We called Ty Lue Bill Belichick with all the adjustments he makes. He's definitely going to find a way. But then he went in about, how coaches choke too. And it's like, what are you talking about, why would you be talking like this right now? Like, it's amazing to me. I think that the adjustments that you're going to get out of Tyronn Lue, let's see what he does. Because I think he out-adjusted the Mavericks. I think he adjusted and leveraged a limited Jazz team. But those options are not available to you against the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, there's not an obvious hole in the Phoenix Suns game. And again, that's because they play as a team. The ball movement is there when it needs to be. Devin Booker gets enough touches, and it's a testament to Monty Williams because he's the one that's obviously pulling the strings and telling this team how to play. So we'll see. I think it needs to be said that at some point as a basketball team, you can't continue to go down 2-0 and think you're going to continue to win series. You're defying the odds, So that's why I think that comes to an end in this one.
I'm going to go 126.
Damn, you really think it's going to be a high-scoring game?
It's going to be. I think it's going to be 126-121. Suns will win that game. I think they're going to shoot. They're going to shoot a lot of threes. I think the Clippers are going to come out and shoot a lot of threes. And I think this is going to be one of those games that's going to plod along, and then it's just going to explode. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. All right, make sure you hit subscribe right here on the old YouTube machine. Because I say that because we're giving away an Xbox Series S, and let's pull up the sub numbers.
The good old YouTube machine.
The YouTube machine. Hit subscribe. But listen, a lot of people are like, hey, can I win now? I subscribed. You have to. Wow, we are at 1,110 subscribers.
Let's go.
Wow,
let's go.
That's pretty good. Here's what you have to do to win the Xbox. Before we talk about your boy John McAfee and your other boy, what's his name, Mr.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein.
He was murdered in prison, if you guys don't know.
Here's how you win an Xbox Series S. You don't subscribe to conspiracy theories. You subscribe to the Monty Show on YouTube, and then you tag us. And maybe we should open this up as well to our podcast subscribers, because somebody on podcasts the other day on Twitter said, I don't watch YouTube. Should we open it up to
I guess, sure, yeah. I mean, hey, if you're a podcaster, let us know. We'd love to see how many podcasters are, engaged.
Yeah, if you're listening on the podcast, you can also hit subscribe. Tag us in a picture that shows you're subscribed to our content. So podcast, really it should be YouTube, but we'll let some podcast people in as well. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us a tag on Twitter or Instagram with a photo that you're subscribed. The Monty Show, Monty, The Monty Show, that's me. SLC Supercar, that's you. SLC Supercars.
Me.
That's you. On Twitter or Instagram. If you don't tag us with a photo, you're not entered to win the contest.
Yeah. And this is really simple. Like, sometimes we get these random comments about, like, hey, bro, like, I followed you and 5 of your friends. Like, does that enter me? Dude, you don't have to go around following, like, random people, man. All you got to do is click subscribe, take a picture of it, a screenshot on your phone, and tag us. That's all you got to do. It's really easy.
Yeah, Mitch says, congratulations, you guys are making us watch ads. Well, okay. I mean, look, it's not our fault that we are the best NBA podcast on YouTube and people want to advertise with us.
You are what you are.
We're the best. No, I'm kidding. Another one. Conspiracy theories. Do you subscribe to conspiracy theories, Jake?
Infowars.com.
Why? Why?
Not on the whole, but I do think the Epstein situation is very precarious. I think that, his
why? Because he killed himself? Because he was a massive pedophile?
The fact that, the camera goes out in his jail cell conveniently on the day he dies, and like just the circumstances leading up to it. I personally don't believe that the guy killed himself. I think he was killed because he knows a lot of things about a lot of powerful people. That's what I think.
So you're convinced that Jeffrey Epstein,
yes,
killed himself?
No. I think Jeffrey Epstein was killed by somebody else.
Okay, Wayne, let me say it again. So you're convinced that Jeffrey Epstein hung himself in prison?
No, I'm not.
Okay, I tried to give you an out. Jeffrey Epstein, I think, killed himself. I don't think, somebody snuck in the Clintons, Bill and Hillary, sent in the enforcers.
Infowars.com.
Didn't happen. And then there's John McAfee. Do you guys know who John McAfee is? He is a Silicon Valley titan. John McAfee is a guy that McAfee security software and viruses and stuff. Billionaire.
Right.
Who didn't like paying his taxes, apparently. Allegedly. Goes on the lam. He runs away to Spain. And he uses his former prostitute wife. He married a prostitute. You never marry your prostitute. And again, if I can just give you some, Uncle Monty's got some advice for you. Look, if you're going to pay for sex, don't fall in love with a prostitute. Okay? Anyway, he fell in love with a prostitute, married her, and has used her as a spokesperson, essentially. And she said the other day, well, the U.S. government wants him to die in prison.
Infowars.com.
So John McAfee was on the run because he was wanted for tax evasion in the U.S. He gets picked up in Spain. And they hold him on an extradition warrant to the United States. Goes to court, goes through the process. Judge says, yep, we're going to send John McAfee back to the States. All of a sudden, John McAfee's dead from suicide in his cell. Well, that doesn't really tell the whole story. He has been on this run for a year, saying that the U.S. government wants to kill him, wants to make an example of him, wants him to die in jail. He put a tattoo on his right arm that said whacked. And he said, John McAfee said, if I ever die from suicide, just know it wasn't me. I didn't kill myself. I never would. So then he kills himself in a Spanish prison. And of course, everyone's like, oh, Jeffrey Epstein. Oh.
Right, but you left out you left out one of the most important pieces in those tweets they pulled, which was when he said, hey, if I ever commit suicide, just know it wasn't me. I'll never kill myself, a la Epstein, saying that, hey, Epstein was the same situation.
John McAfee also said in that tweet that Jake is referencing from his hero, where they mentioned Jake's hero, Jeffrey Epstein.
Mm-hmm.
Idiot. Here's the full tweet from McAfee. I'm content here. I have friends. The food is good. All is well. Know that if I hang myself, a la Epstein, it will be no fault of mine. So what does that tweet mean? Okay, well, I would never hang myself. I don't read it that way. When he says, know that if I hang myself, a la Epstein, it's no fault of mine.
Uh-huh.
So is John McAfee saying, if I hang myself, it was murder? Or is John McAfee saying, I was forced to hang myself?
He could be saying either one of those, honestly. What
do you think?
Listen, I don't know. I don't know enough about McAfee in the history, to be quite honest with you. I think that John, you made a good point before the show, which I think is totally valid, and I hadn't really thought of, which was, hey, this guy was a Silicon Valley Titan and, a big deal, and he's just doing this to mess with people. It's kind of like his last ditch, die on a hill effort kind of a thing, which it very well could be that. All I'm saying is that, more so with Epstein than McAfee, Epstein knew things about people that nobody else knew. And
there's some people who say because of his software company, McAfee did as well. By the way, I want to read you this other tweet because this plays into your everybody's getting murdered plot.
Mm-hmm. Plot.
McAfee also tweeted, getting subtle messages from U.S. officials saying, in effect, we're coming for you, McAfee. We're going to kill yourself.
We're going to kill yourself.
I got tattooed today just in case. If I suicide myself, I didn't. I was whacked. Check my right arm.
Infowars.com.
I don't believe that the government... Does the U.S. government travel the world murdering people? Well, yeah.
They do.
Yes,
they do.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. I don't believe that they killed Jeffrey Epstein. Did the Clintons do it? Sure, the Clintons killed all kinds of people, allegedly. I don't believe that Jeffrey Epstein was murdered, in all seriousness. I don't think the Clintons give a flying about Jeffrey Epstein.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. I think he knew if he had gone to prison for life that it was going to be a miserable existence.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, don't you have to have guilt on your mind for being an incredible pedo and sex trafficker, allegedly? I would think so.
I mean, yeah, I guess. I would think you would, yeah. But does that drive you to kill yourself? I mean, I don't know, man. That's what I'm saying. It's just very precarious. It's the things that happen before his, what they're calling a suicide. I just think it's very interesting. That's all. Yeah, I'm not. When you know things about people, that tends to end poorly for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's Coach Lovren. Good morning, Josh. Talk about the whale tweets, LOL. So John McAfee once tweeted many years ago, and I still can't believe I'm going to read this because I've read this over the last couple of days. John McAfee tweeted, "Enough of the whale effing is non-consensual bullshit. A humpback whale weighs 70,000 pounds. It's 50 feet long, can dive more than a quarter mile, and can crush ships with a single swipe of its tail. If a human manages to F one, you damn well better believe it's consensual." That's who we're talking about. That's John McAfee, though.
Yeah.
This guy is a whack job.
A little bit off his rocker, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're talking, come on. eBay the Sofa Surfer says Ted Bundy's story is the greatest true crime story of all time. And Utahns know all about him. Yes, we do. Brandon Whiteside says, "What's up with all the sketchy millionaires, all the money in the world, and these dudes are out to be villains?" That's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
Right? You've got Jeffrey Epstein, who is a money manager and has all kinds of stacks of cash everywhere.
Bro, call him an operative, because that's essentially what he was.
What do you mean an operative?
The guy was in the middle of one of the biggest rings that we've ever seen. And you can't tell me, as part of those relationships, that he wasn't doing other things behind the scenes. Whether it was, moving stuff for people, whacking people. You can't tell me he wasn't doing those things, man. When you're in that kind of position, when you have relationships with the people he had relationships with.
Right, but my question is, why are you doing that when he died with a liquid cash value of $577 million?
Yeah,
and
no,
all
that's
of his
a great
assets
question.
together are worth $3 billion, and you're a pedo who runs a sex trafficking ring. And I agree with you. When you run a sex trafficking ring, generally people are getting murdered.
Yeah.
You're the devil incarnate.
Yeah.
Why don't you just not ever talk again and go sleep on your $577 million cash?
I'm Shiva, the god of death.
Why do you have to be Shiva, the god of death? Right? John McAfee, I don't know. I'll look it up. Hang on. John McAfee's net worth
is a lot.
Come on. There are people who estimate that he's worth liquid more than $100 million. And when he died, because he stopped making money, his net worth was just $4 million. Well, listen, if you want to give me the $4 million of his net worth, just $4 million, I'll take it.
Yeah. Just $4 million? Sure, I'll take it.
He used to brag about having over $100 million in cash in the bank. McAfee sold a $25 million Colorado estate for $5.7 million. He also sold his Hawaii ranch at a loss, and as well as a ranch in New Mexico and a Cessna private jet to fund his excursions.
Yeah.
McAfee also tweeted, "The U.S. believes I've hidden crypto. I wish I did, but it has dissolved through the many hands of Team McAfee. And my remaining assets are all seized. My friends evaporated through the fear of association. I have nothing yet, regret nothing."
Yeah.
God, why don't you just pay your taxes and go play with your billions? This is such a good question. This is such a good question, Brandon.
I think what ends up happening is guys who... Jeffrey Epstein was a sick individual. He was a sick human being, right? He was not right mentally, doing just insane stuff. But I think a lot of these guys, you to make that much money on, look at Warren Buffett as an example. You're telling me that guy's not addicted to making money? You telling me that he doesn't have an absolute, hunger for doing it? Yeah, of course he does, So when you do that for long enough, and now you've got billions, and now you're living a cushy lifestyle where you could literally never work again and be fine, boredom tends to get you in trouble.
Do you understand that if you just give me $1 million, I'm out? You'll never see me again.
Yeah.
I can easily live on $1 million the rest of my life. I mean, it's amazing to me. Whether it's the Clintons or and this is the thing about Berkshire, this is the thing about Jeff Bezos. Yeah. Hey, why are you going to space, bro? What are you doing? Why are you, Bill Gates, banging people at Microsoft allegedly?
Yeah.
Getting divorced and giving away half of your billions?
Oh, shit. Damn, I am tripping.
If you're, again, I'm not advocating for falling in love with hookers, but McAfee never banged people at McAfee, right? Like, you can't be stupid to make the money that Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos make.
Right.
But how do you get outed with a D-pick Jeff Bezos? Like, how does that happen?
Because you think you're untouchable.
Man.
That's the problem. You think you're untouchable, and it's not true.
I'm out. Edgar Garcia says, my boys, keep it going 100. I'm telling you. Eric and Raleigh says you have to be a villain in order to get ultra rich. Do you? Do you have to be a villain? When you think the richest person in the world, who comes to mind?
Well, for the longest time, Bill Gates was the guy that came to mind for me. But
the guy that comes to mind for me is Warren Buffett. Is Warren Buffett a villain? I mean, some of his companies are, but I mean, the guy's in real estate, automotive, like the guy's everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's
at this point, he's nothing more than Jabba the Hutt at 100 years old. But he's got all this money, and he's like, I don't look at him as a villain. You know, like I look at the next generation of billionaires, guys like Drake. What's Drake's legacy going to be? What's a guy like Khaled's legacy going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends what they do after their music career. So, like for Drake,
yes,
his music career is not ending anytime soon. I mean, he's in his prime for music. Again, he could never make another song again, and never he could just stop everything right now and never have to work again, and go live on an island if he wanted to. But for Drake, I think I could potentially see Drake opening or going down the path of mentorship with younger kids and doing community work, because he definitely does that for sure. But we've also seen him dive into the NBA with the Raptors and kind of forming those relationships. So I think Drake has a potential to, for as much of a douche as he tends to be at times, he has the business acumen to make things happen.
All the time. He is a douche canoe. Jeremy Bolton, good morning to you. He says you need to see Ben Anderson's tweets about his dad's interaction with Ted Bundy. Oh, yeah. Like Ben Anderson, who, by the way, I used to work with Ben at 1320K fan, enormously talented human. That Jake can't stand his jazz takes, though. But
no, I'm not humoring your games.
Anyway, Ben Anderson's got crazy Ted Bundy stories. If you don't follow Ben,
did he ever tell you one back in the day?
I believe he did. I don't remember the details of it, but yes. And look, having been at 1320K fan with, with Gunther, who was a full-on conspiracy theorist, full-on. Mm-hmm. Anyway, if you don't follow Ben Anderson, I think he is Ben's Hoops, BENS, Ben's Hoops.
Ben's.
I'm telling you that he's good. He's a good NBA follow. You won't agree with him on everything, but the Ted Bundy stuff's crazy. There's just so many conspiracy theories out there. Like,
yes.
Again, the Clintons have killed everybody. The grassy knoll.
Yes.
All this stuff, like aliens,
Area 51,
UFOs, Area 51, which is true. I don't know if they have alien carcasses at Area 51.
Do you want to go to the raid on Area 51 that never happened?
Yeah. It amazes me. Like QAnon in general. Like our country is in a pot right now, and a lot of it is over QAnon. And by the way, did anybody see that John McAfee's Instagram account? He kills himself. Yes, he did commit suicide. He kills himself. And did you see what McAfee's Instagram account posted?
No.
On a white background, just a big, bold black Q on his Instagram. That's the last post on John McAfee's Instagram. So,
I'm just telling you. Just telling you.
I don't know, man. To me, it's one of those things where if you're a conspiracy theorist, you're always going to believe in this stuff. Like this is, I don't know.
I just think that I don't believe in every single conspiracy, like the moon stuff and all that. Like I just think that when
the moon being in a TV studio.
Yeah, I don't believe in all that crap. But with Epstein, the only reason that I give a little bit of credence to the Epstein situation and the way he died and everything is because again, I just believe that when knowledge is power, and it could also be the worst thing ever. When you know things about people who are powerful, have money, have influence, and those things can come out and ruin them potentially if you were to share them. That's where I'm like, okay, I could see something going down.
But like, listen to Jeremy Bolton. He says you have to be a dick to be really rich, right? I mean, at some point you have to screw someone over.
Well, screwing someone over, frankly, man, like, you don't
have to be Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook to be rich.
Listen, like the Zuckerberg situation, he screwed the homie over. But like, I think generally speaking in business, typically the person who comes out on the losing end always feels like a victim and feels like they got screwed over. But 9 times out of 10, like it's just the way the cookie crumbled. Like, I think of all the people, there's like, I'd have to pull it up. I can't remember. There's a new chain in Utah that basically is a snack food chain that's a drive-through. So you can get like drinks and popcorn and like pretzels and like all these different things. They're in. I'll pull them up and talk about it tomorrow maybe, but they're this new thing, and I think about all those kind of like business ventures and people trying to do that stuff. Does that make them dicks because they came up with that concept? No. That makes them smart, right? Like, so I think a lot of times what we do is we say, oh man, like, Bill Gates came up with Microsoft in his garage 20 years ago or whatever it was now, and he's uber successful. And what we do, instead of saying, hey, man, like, great job for creating that and, like, being a pioneer, what we do is we say, hey, you cheated on your wife with an intern in the back boardroom. That makes you a dick and makes you just somebody that I can't get down with. But everything up to that was amazing. It just is. I just think that the leash for successful people is extremely short with the general public.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that. Jeremy Bolton says, he has Ben's tweet. He says, my dad here's Ben Anderson's tweet about Ted Bundy. My dad used to work with Ted Bundy at the University of Utah. Yes, I remember this now. And every Friday, my dad would say, see you Monday, Bundy. And I can't even imagine how many times Ted actually thought about murdering him for it.
Jesus.
Can you imagine that?
No.
Can you imagine that? Well, when I was a kid, the big serial killer was... oh my God. His name just went right out of my head. The guy that dressed up as a clown in Chicago. And killed kids.
Oh man.
Oh my God.
Dude.
Why did I have to
Bro,
do that?
why?
Why did I? It just went
right
out of my head.
You gotta pull it up now.
It just went right out of my head.
Cue up the Google machine. Chicago clown killer.
Chicago serial killers. Not the Chicago Strangler. Good. Anyway, he was a guy that dressed up as a clown and did kids party. John Wayne Gacy? I don't know. Anyway, the point is,
yes, John Wayne Gacy.
John Wayne Gacy. Thank you. And killed kids.
Known as the killer clown.
Yeah, and killed kids.
33.
Like, how many parents are like, wow, he was in our house? How did he not kill my little Amanda or whatever it is?
Jesus.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Pogo the clown.
By the way, there is an Air Jordan 1 drop right now that's happening. It is the natural gray.
Is it a women's shoe?
No, it's a men's shoe. It's already sold out in a 15. Like, how is that possible? Oh, my God. Oh, my God. And there's second chance on sneakers? What are you talking about here? What are we talking about? Why are you doing this to me? There's a second chance on sneakers, apparently.
What the hell does that mean?
I don't even know what
does that mean? So, by the way, we're all sitting here on our phone in the sneakers app. We're doing a podcast, and
the Topes.
We're just sitting here.
Topes.
We're sitting here,
Give me the Topes, mother. See, like I'm in the draw on the Topes. Come on, let's go. What else? Oh, the Cool Grays! The Cool Grays, you sons of bitches! The Cool Grays.
Where are you seeing any of this?
Just refresh your sneakers app, bro. The Cool Grays, oh my God. What are you doing to me, sneakers app? What are you doing to me? No, I'm not doing Change the World.
Can't see any of this. Neat.
Are you serious? Just refresh.
Yeah. Guy, what do you think? I'm like stupid?
Okay. You are not smart. Anyway, sorry, we're losing our minds over Jordans right now here live on the show. Brandon Whiteside says, I thought you were banned from shoe shopping. My anniversary's over. I don't have to worry about what my wife thinks anymore.
Wow, this is going to do serious damage to the Apple Card if all this goes through.
Yeah, I know. Oh, great. And now my wife is on the app, too. She's like,
Funny how we went from not buying any shoes to buying a bunch of shoes.
You mother effers! I want it badly. I know you do, baby. So
Wow.
here's a funny story last night, right? Like, my wife wants to have marital relations last night, and it's our anniversary, and like we're ready to put.
So you're in the mood, and everything's cool, and then what?
She leaned on my chest, and I got a side cramp.
Wow.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. What about the Denver airport conspiracy? Okay.
What's that conspiracy?
Okay, so I know about this one. And it is, okay. So there's a conspiracy, by the way, if you don't know about there is pretty much a conspiracy in every airport. Okay, so like.
In every airport?
Just about every airport has
Okay.
one. Like dead bodies under O'Hare. It is just.
Dead bodies under O'Hare.
Yes. Yeah, there's all kinds of them. That the mafia buried bodies under the runway at O'Hare. Like, there's all kinds of them.
No kidding.
But the Denver airport, and if we're thinking about the same thing, correct me if we're not, that the Denver airport was built for the New World Order.
What?
And that, it's amazing. Theories that one of the most persistent is that it was built by the New World Order with ties to Nazism. Like, it's stuff like that where I'm like, dude, come on, bro.
Like what are we talking about here?
I'm with you, man, but
What are we talking about? Come on now.
I just can't. Yeah, I can't get down with that.
No.
And I there are some conspiracy theories where I'm like, I'm out. I just can't do it. All right, we're gonna lose some draws here.
Okay. Wow. All right.
You guys collect dunks. Well, some dunks. Like I bought the Dusty dunks, or I can't remember the full name of them, the other day for 110. I sold them for 220 something. Almost as I posted them, and they sold immediately as soon as I put them on StockX. So I mean, it's pretty crazy that there's like the shoe game. I'm not a dunk guy. I have one pair. I'm good. I'm good with the dunks.
Okay, I'm legit in like $1,000 worth of draws right now.
Are you really?
The sneakers have to.
I'm in the taupe. I'm in on the cool grays.
I'm on the cool grays for you as well.
Oh, you are?
I'm on the because I already had because you remember you got the cool grays originally, but you got them in a 13, and I have that pair.
Yes.
So I'm on them. I got them in a 15 for you. So hopefully you get them.
Yeah. Before we get out of here, I will answer this question. Tanner Plummer, what's up, Tanner? Good to hear you, buddy. He says, "Are there any conspiracy theories you guys believe?"
Yeah, dude, I believe that Jeffrey Epstein was killed in prison.
And I believe that the mafia killed John F. Kennedy.
Do you really?
Yes, I do.
Why?
I think everything adds up. I mean, like Jimmy Hoffa and like
Jimmy Hoffa.
There's just too much.
There's too much there, right?
There's too much there. There's nothing there that says Jeffrey Epstein was murdered in prison. Nothing. There's no solid evidence. You're an idiot.
Okay.
And I'm like whether it's that there had to be a second shooter in the John F. Kennedy thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they had the Frank Ruby, the guy that killed the like Lee Harvey Oswald. He killed Lee Harvey Oswald. Like he was a mafia guy. Like there's just too many ties. There's too much evidence. The way the bullet went through the president's head. Like, yes, I believe that conspiracy theory. I do not believe that the moon landing was in a TV studio. Sorry, bros. I know you want to believe that. It's not true. I don't believe in Bigfoot.
Infowars.com.
I don't believe, and you can ask what the other conspiracies are, like Area 51. Yeah, I think they investigated UFOs at Area 51. Do they have dead? Is E.T.'s body at Area 51? No, I don't think so.
E.T.'s body.
Call me crazy. Wayfair is involved in human trafficking.
Oh, yes. I remember that one.
I remember that one, too. I don't buy that one. So AK92 says, so you think Epstein killed himself? I do, yes. Tanner Plummer says, Monty, you need to watch Oliver Stone's JFK movie. I've seen it.
Infowars.com.
I don't think QAnon is real, or there's like a guy that is like, I think QAnon is the manifestation of weakness in our society. I think people want to belong and believe. Ramiro says, thumbnail said, should the Jazz hire Danny Ainge? And you guys are talking about tinfoil hats and shoes. Did I join late? You joined way late.
Yeah,
Ramiro.
bud, you joined way late.
Like way late. We're an hour and 35 minutes into the show.
Yeah, man.
Joshua Lovren says 2002 Western Conference Lakers over Kings was fixed.
Please.
Well, why wouldn't the Blazers series be fixed? That was like an incredible collapse. I don't know. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But
all right,
we got to go.
Yeah.
We have to not sell anything at the Yelpatory today.
Yeah. All right. Good talk.
Okay, sorry, I'm bitter. You had a good day at the Yelpatory yesterday.
Good week so far.
Yeah. What do you have up on the week?
15.
How do you have 15?
1 on Monday, 2 on Tuesday.
Today is Thursday.
2 on Wednesday.
Okay. All right. I got some work to do today then. I got to catch it, bro, because I only have 12.
Yeah, but you're like 4 deals ahead of me though on the month.
Well,
so
pimpin's going.
Yeah,
pimp.
I don't care about the month. I'm kicking your ass every week.
Yeah,
that's how this works.
Pimpin's going to pimp. Play's going to play. You know what I'm saying? No, I don't. What did you just say? Anyway. Exactly right. Hit subscribe. Send us some good shoe karma. I need the topes and the cool.
Come on, baby.
I need those cool grades. Make sure you go ahead and hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up right now if you're here watching the show. Click thumbs up. Really helps the channel grow. When we get to 1,500 subs, we're going to give away an Xbox Series S. By the way, will somebody please get me to 1,000 followers on Instagram? The Monty Show. MONTY, The Monty Show. I think I'm at like 998.
Well, maybe if you would agree that Epstein was killed, you'd get to 1,000.
Epstein killed. He was killed by himself. All right. Until tomorrow, say.
Epstein was murdered.
Peace out.